Cinemavision ink. It's a lot smaller than the Phantom. So small.
Yeah, it's cute.
It's crazy. Compact. I feel like people don't really know, at least I wouldn't have known that this lens is so tiny. So sick.
So what is so special about the Freefly Ember camera? Well, for a while, the only camera that could do shots that were around 1,000 frames a second or higher was the Phantom camera, which is really useful for some actions where you have to capture a split-second moment. The high-speed camera market is a super niche and super specialty market, but when you need it, you really need it. I'm testing the Freefly Ember because I have a shoot coming up this week where we need extreme slow motion, and the camera that we're shooting the commercial on is my Sony Burano, but unfortunately the max speed of the Sony Burano is 120 frames a second. The action that we're looking to capture is a split-second moment that really needs to be shot in at least 500 frames a second, ideally higher. And because the Ember shoots up to 800 frames a second, it's gonna be the perfect camera, at least in my mind, for us to accomplish this job. I'm of the opinion that it is always super important to test cameras before you bring them onto paid jobs, because every camera, no matter how good it is, always has its quirks that you need to know about before you're working with something on a paid gig. You always wanna have some hands-on experience with a new camera, and because the Freefly Ember is such a specialty camera, I have never come across it before, I've never used it, so the good folks at Cinemavision allowed us to take the camera out for a day before we rent it for the job. So big thanks to Cinemavision. I'm gonna link them down in the description. They are super, super dope, and they were so generous to let us do this. I also wanna thank Rambow Studios, who opened their doors for the second time for me in 6 months to use the Cinema Robot to do this test, and we got some amazing shots. You get to embrace these really beautiful moments that you might miss or take for granted if you were just watching her in real time. At 600 frames per second, we were able to get just billions of incredibly beautiful moments with her. So the Ember has 2 color profiles that you can shoot in. You can shoot in Rec. 709, or they have a beta hybrid log gamma, which is basically a flatter version of the Rec. 709 profile. This uses the camera's native RGB color space and only modifies the tone curve to boost shadows and flatten the highlights. It is not true HLG, and it does not use a standard color space like Rec. 2020. Thus, a standard HLG LUT is not recommended. We ended up shooting at 400 ISO, which is the highest ISO rating for the Freefly Ember. We shot with the Laowa Ranger 16 to 30 millimeter, which is a T2.9, and we had to have the lens ripped wide open for the lighting that we had available to us in order to get an exposure. In fact, we were so limited on lighting that we didn't even get the opportunity to film at 800 frames per second. We had to top out at 600, and we chose the Laowa Ranger because I really wanted to take advantage of the 16 millimeter focal length to sort of give us the ability to get a wider shot on the top-down angle. The Freefly Ember is a Super 35 millimeter camera that tops out at 5K resolution. However, if you shoot 800 frames per second, you're limited to 4K resolution. Here's a convenient chart that outlines all the available frame rates and resolutions of the Freefly Ember S5K. As you can see, there are some in-between resolutions. You can actually shoot some higher frame rates in more narrow aspect ratios. All right, the footage on my computer is playing back super smoothly, and as you can see, scrub through it super fast, and it does not stutter, which I feel like with Phantom footage, I've not had this experience where it's kind of just played back really, really well. The hybrid log gamma footage with no grade on it. It's just like a little bit more flat than the Rec 709 footage would look, but it's definitely like a really solid starting point. I just made basically a few little adjustments, nothing crazy, just wanted to get this to a point where, I don't know, it looked a little bit more finished. The color reproduction of this camera is a lot better than the Phantom. I think that it's creating a very pleasing image. It's a specialty camera for a specialty purpose, so the fact that it produces anything that looks out of the box pretty good is impressive to me. The only thing image-wise the Phantom has on the Freefly Ember is that it has a native ISO 800, which is, you know, helpful for sure with high speed, but not impossible to overcome. So yeah, overall, like really, we just wanted to film some cool stuff with the Ember and get a sense of what the dynamic range is like, what the noise is like with the camera, and then also kind of get a sense of what the color reproduction is like as well. And overall, it seemed really good. One of the key sort of benefits of the Ember is that it's got a more modern UI. I feel like the image feels more modern out of the box. It does record straight to ProRes. It's not like a RAW format that you can totally manipulate in post, but it's also a more modern format. It's flexible enough, and I think the Freefly Ember is totally a suitable replacement for the Phantom. The usability improvements, the size of this thing, it's tiny. Just all these things kind of add up to making for a really nice user experience that Freefly ended up coming up with. I'm super excited to use the Freefly Ember this week because this project that we're using it on is a real banger, and the shots that we're gonna do with it are gonna be epic. So I can't wait to eventually share more about that project with you guys. Overall, I feel like I didn't learn anything surprising about the Ember, but I did feel like I gained a lot of confidence with it from doing this test. And you know, as I've said before, that is why we test cameras. We test cameras to build confidence, and we test cameras to understand how the camera performs in the field. It's one thing to pick a camera up out of the box, play around with it in your apartment, and then put it away, but it's another thing to put the camera through a number of different scenarios, to put it through a real world test with real people that are unpredictable or that present different situations than you expected or that you could set up by yourself. So testing cameras is so important. Every time I get a new camera or use a new camera, I will make sure to test it for you guys and share the results on here. If you liked this video, please leave a like, a comment down below. Please subscribe. I'm really trying to grow the channel this year, and every time you guys comment, it really helps, and we will see you on the next one.